Hello dear students, let us start with chapter number 14, that is assessment procedure. Now let me tell you, this is a pure theoretical chapter. In that, generally theory question which is coming into the examination is being asked from this chapter. Just like in July 21 exam, what they have done, a 4-marker question from the same chapter, and in that alternative again a 4-mark question from the same chapter. Now let us start referring the main concept of this chapter, which will cover almost 90%. The very first section is section 139 subsection 1. Who is required to file return of income? Who is required to file? Number 1, every company, every partnership firm, every limited liability partnership compulsory has to file return of income. Or every other person, that is individual, HUF, AOP, BOI, AJP, they will file the return of income if their gross total income plus the exemption of capital gain which they have taken, add them, the total should be more than basic exemption limit. If it is so, they will file the return of income. For example, let's say my salary income is rupees 1 lakh, my capital gain is 10 lakh, but from that I have taken deduction of section 54, let's say total 10 lakh, and that's why capital gain is going to be 0. So what will be my gross total income? The gross total income is rupees 1 lakh. Now, for the purpose of section 139 subsection 1, what I have to check? What is my gross total income plus exemption of capital gain? Can I say gross total income is 1 lakh plus capital gain exemption is 10 lakh, total 11 lakh? Whether it is more than basic exemption limit? Yes, then I have to file my return of income. Or if I have deposited more than 1 crore rupees, that is cash, more than 1 crore rupees of cash in any of my current bank account, then also I am supposed to file my return of income. If I am depositing in saving bank account, that is totally okay. If I am depositing more than 1 crore in current account, then I have to file my return of income. Or if I have done any foreign traveling expenditure of myself or my relative, more than rupees 2 lakh, not exactly 2 lakh, more than 2 lakh, then I am supposed to file the return of income. Or I have paid bill of electricity for my house, for my office, more than 1 lakh during the previous year, I am supposed to file the return of income. Or let's say I am not covered in any of this provision, but I am a resident, an ordinary resident, I have any foreign asset, including any financial asset outside India, I am compulsorily required to file my return of income. So these are the 5 cases wherein compulsorily I have to file the return of income. The question arises, up to which date I have to file? If I am a assessee who is supposed to get audited under transfer pricing provisions that you will learn in CA final section 92E, then up to 30th November of the assessment year I have to file the return. If I am any other company, whether audited company or not audited company, compulsory 31st October. Any other person, firm, individual, HUF who is audited under 44AB or audited under any other law, still 31st October. If I am a partner, working partner or sleeping partner of a partnership firm which is an audited firm, again I have to file my return of income up to 31st October. In any other case, that is a salaried person, pensioner person, a businessman who is not audited, I have to file the return of income up to 31st July of the assessment year. So these are the due dates. Now what if I file my return of income after the due date of section 139 subsection 1? I can file the return, the due dates will see. But if I file my return of income after the due date of 139 subsection 1, I have to pay interest under 234A if my tax is also pending. And along with that, I have to file the late fee under section 234F also. Now let's say I have filed the return after the due date of 139(1), but no tax is supposed to be paid, then interest will not be applicable, but late fee will be applicable. If tax is also pending, then interest will also come, late fee will also come. Interest under 234A will be applicable at the rate of 1% per month or part of the month after the due date till the date of return filing, and this interest will be calculated on the balance tax payable, that is on the self-assessment tax. For example, my tax which is payable, which is pending, is 5,000. My due date is 31st October. So from 1st November till the date of paying that tax, per month I have to pay 1% interest. Now how much late fee under 234F I have to pay? You see what is your total income. If your total income is less than or equal to 5 lakh and you are filing your return of income late, then 1000 is the late fee that you have to pay. If your total income is more than 5 lakh, then you see up to which date you are filing your return. Up to 31st December, then 5000. After 31st December, then 10,000. But if your total income is less than or equal to 5 lakh, then even if you are filing your return of income after 31st December, still it will be 1000 only. So 234F late fee depend on the total income. Now the next point is section 139(4) belated return. See, if I miss the due date of 139 subsection 1, then I just said I can file the belated return. But what is the last date up to which I can file belated return? It has to be certain limit, na? The limit is maximum up to the end of assessment year or the completion of assessment, that is the scrutiny order whenever it is given by the assessing officer, whichever is earlier. Generally you have to remember end of assessment year. So let's say I am talking about previous year 2021, then what is the latest of the last date up to which I can file the return, even belated? 31st March 2022, that is the end of assessment year. Obviously I have to pay interest under 234A along with late fee under section 234F. Acha, what if I have filed my original return or belated return and in that I found some error, some omission, some wrong statement, and now I want to correct it? Can I do so? Yes, you have to file a revised return. Revised return can be filed under section 139 subsection 5. So if you have filed your return of income either under 139(1) or 139(4) and you discover any omission or a wrong statement, you can file the revised return. But revised return can be filed maximum up to end of assessment year or completion of your assessment, whichever is earlier. So here again, what is the last date of filing revised return? Up to the end of assessment year. Now remember, once you are filing your revised return, it will attract all the provisions as if it is the original return. It will replace the original return. And you can file your revised return n number of time, there is no limit. Now with your return of income, you have to furnish certain details to the government under section 139 subsection 6. Like how much exempt income you have. Then you have to give the details of certain asset which they are asking for. Then you have to give details that how much bank account you have, how much credit card you have. And if they are asking to give the details of certain expenditure, you have to give it separately. So these are certain details that you have to file along with your return of income. If you are a businessman, you have PGBP income. Then over and above 139(6), you have to give some more details also. Like if you are an audited person, then report under 44AB. Then place of business and branches. If you are a partnership firm, then the details of partner. If you are a member, then in which firms you are partner, that details also you have to give. So if you have PGBP income, you have to give this 4 details also over and above the details which we have seen earlier. Now let's say you have filed a return and the assessing officer found some error in that, some defect in that. Then he will send you a notice that please correct your error within 15 days. If you don't rectify your error within 15 days, but after 15 days, assessing officer can condone your delays. But let's say you do not rectify your defect itself, assessing officer has the power to declare that your return is invalid and all the provisions will be applicable as if you have not filed your return itself. So what section 139 subsection 9 says? Defective return. Assessing officer has the discretion to intimate the defect to the assessee. If assessee do the rectification in 15 days of intimation or extended time, then it is okay. If we do not rectify at all, then the return will be treated as invalid plus all the provisions will be applicable as if you haven't filed your return of income. If assessee rectifies the return but after the due date, assessing officer has a right to condone your delay and it will be treated as valid only. Now when it can be said that your return of income is defective? Number 1, if you have not filed any annexure, statement or column which were supposed to be filled in the return, or your return is not complied with the computation statement, with report under 44AB if you are audited, with the proof of tax which you have paid, audited P&L balance sheet with various accounts. If you have not given any of these details, your return can be said as defective, for which you have to correct the defect later on. Now you must have heard that for income tax purpose you need a particular number, and that number is called as permanent account number, a 10-digit alphanumeric number, which you have to quote in each and every correspondence done with income tax department. Now when a person is supposed to take permanent account number, it is given under section 139A. Below mentioned persons are supposed to take permanent account number. Number one, if your total income is exceeding basic exemption limit, then up to 31st May of assessment year, compulsory you have to take permanent account number. Then let's say if your turnover is going more than 5 lakh rupees in the previous year, compulsory up to 31st March of the previous year, you have to make the application to take permanent account number. Let's say you are a resident person except individual, means you are a HUF, firm, company, AOP, BOI, etc., etc. and you are entering into a financial transaction for the amount more than 2.5 lakh. You are investing something, you are issuing shares, you are taking the loan more than 2.5 lakh. Then up to 31st May of the assessment year, you have to compulsory file your return of income. If you are covered under point number 3, then any trustee, director, karta and member of that person has to compulsory take permanent account number up to 31st May of the assessment year. Let's say you are not covered in any of the provision, but still assessing officer can suo moto allot you permanent account number. He has the discretion to give you that. See, this is a lifetime number. Once you are taking it, you should not take it again and again. It is once lifetime. However, there is an amendment. From 1st September 2019, whenever you are supposed to give permanent account number, it is totally okay if you are just giving Aadhaar number instead of permanent account number. It is okay. So now if you are compulsorily required to take permanent account number, it is totally okay if you are not taking it and you are quoting Aadhaar number over there. Now let us understand what is Aadhaar number, section 139AA. From 1st July 2017, it is totally mandatory to quote your Aadhaar number in each and every income tax return and also in PAN card application. If you don't have Aadhaar number, then at least you have to write your application number, that is enrollment ID of 28 digit in income tax return. If you fail to intimate Aadhaar number, then your permanent account number will be made inoperative after the date which is notified by CBDT. Means your permanent account number will not be called as valid, it will be invalid. Now 4 kind of persons are there who are not required to obtain Aadhaar number. 4 kind of person which are not compulsorily required to quote Aadhaar number. Number 1, if you are resident of Jammu, Kashmir, Assam, Meghalaya, there is no need to take Aadhaar number. Or you are non-resident as per income tax, no need to take Aadhaar number. You are very senior citizen, over and above 80 years, it is okay if you are not taking Aadhaar number. And if you are not an Indian citizen, still it is not mandatory for you to take Aadhaar number. I am expecting this as a theory question. Resident of Jammu, Kashmir, Assam, Meghalaya, non-resident as per income tax, very senior citizen and not an Indian citizen. These 4 kind of persons are never supposed to obtain Aadhaar number. 139B. Let's say a person is there who want to file his return of income, but don't want to go to a CA, to a tax practitioner who will charge huge amount to file the return. So these persons can go to the agent which is appointed by government on area to area basis. This agent are called as tax return preparer, TRP. This TRP will file your return of income without taking any charges from you, and government will give them the commission. But remember, up to now TRP can file the return only of resident individual HUF who is not audited. So TRP cannot file the return of company, firm, etc. TRP cannot file the return of any non-resident. TRP cannot file the return of a person who is audited. TRP can only file the return of a resident, non-audited individual HUF. Now, who cannot become TRP? Let's say I have an account in State Bank of India. Then any employee of State Bank of India cannot become my TRP. I can appoint any other TRP. So the officer or of a bank with which my account is there, that person cannot become my TRP. Any legal practitioner can never be appointed as TRP. Any chartered accountant cannot be a TRP. Any employee who is an employee under any employer cannot become TRP. However, if you are an employee of a company or you are an employee of an audited person, then you can become TRP. So basically they want to say government employee cannot become TRP, because a normal employee of a company and a normal person who is audited, their employee can become TRP. Then only those TRP can file the revised return who has filed the original return. If the TRP has not filed the original return, that TRP cannot file your revised return also. For becoming the TRP, generally you need a bachelor degree or you have to be inter CA, CS and CMA. This is okay. This is the qualification that is required to become a tax return preparer under section 139B. Are you understanding this, people? Here I have covered almost 90% of the important topics of assessment procedure chapter, a most important theoretical chapter for 4 marks. Thank you so much.